Okay, here we have notes on Antigone, and keep in mind this is a Greek play. This is bad drawing here, but at least it's pretty close. And remember, Greek tragedies always have some kind of irony, strange twist of fate, where if they had done one thing, they could have, the characters had done something differently, they could have prevented it. In this play, they also have a chorus full of women who sing and kind of do foreshadowing or, telling you what really happened. So, anyway, the play starts out where Antigone is talking to her sister, and these two people are Antigone's brothers. Both are dead. Both dead. And King Creon, who comes from a line of the Titans, and the Titans are gods. So King Creon is basically like kind of angry. In fact, he's not kind of, he's angry. And so at one of the brothers. So these guys are both two dead brothers. So she lost him in war. There's already a sadness. And these look like fur boots, but these are also military. This is a drawing we did. It's the burial of our two brothers. Creon promotes one of them and shames the other. Eteocles, I heard Creon covered him beneath the earth with proper rites, as law ordains, so he has the honor down among the dead. But Polynesius' miserable corpse, they say Creon has proclaimed to everyone no burial of any kind, no wailing, no public tears. Give him to the vultures, unwept, unburied, to be a sweet treasure for their sharp eyes and beak. And this here is an expression too. If we leave you to the vultures, we have no respect for you. And vultures are those big birds. Most of them are black or dark brown, and they're big, and they can strip the meat off of anything and tear you down to the bone. And they come in different shapes. So let's go. So here's characters and their purpose. Now I'll let you read this. So Antigone is a woman in this time, and for her to even think that she wants to avenge her brother, it's kind of bold for a woman to try to do that. Okay, Oedipus Rex. Oedipus was a king, and Rex in Latin means king. And if you ever read the tragedy of Oedipus or Oedipus Rex, they even say the Oedipal complex. This is right here where he wanted to kill his father so he could obtain his mother. He's a tragic character because then he thinks about it, ends up trying not to kill his father, but ends up doing it anyway. So this family has a huge tragedy. It's like a family curse. Labdacus is one of their ancestors. You may not have to get that deep to read this poem, but just understand this family has a background tragedy. Creon coming from the kings, he's arrogant, but he's royal. So what he says goes. Unfortunately, he admits his own fate at the end of the play. He says everything I touch turns against me. He didn't listen to Haman. I'm going to skip ahead to number 6. Haman is his son, but Haman and Antigone kind of, committed to each other. Okay, and I kind of gave out this by saying this here. He ends up doing that, and you guys can read on and see why. Okay, who does not deserve a decent burial, who is a hero. So you have Polynesius again, and Eteocles. Okay, so just look at the character list. And then Act 1, Scene 1, she talks to her sister. She says, Isme, my dear true sister, you and I are left alive to pay the final penalty to Zeus for Oedipus. Okay, dear heart, my true sister, repetition. But this repetition here shows like how much she now loves her sister and that she expects she and her sister to lean on her. And as you read the play, Isme is actually the person who is not so in love with the idea of trying to avenge them, and she tries to warn Antigone that that can't happen. Okay, you cannot avenge, Ismay tells her later, you cannot avenge them. Not only are you a woman, but you can never go against the king. And here we go. Final penalty was here, but I wanted to draw it here. Final penalty is foreshadowing. Not only is this repetition again, it's also it's repetition. It's also a kind of paradox because when you say final penalty, it kind of references death, like the last penalty anyone will get. And so therefore it becomes metonymy, which is for death. Okay, and then it foreshadows what's going to happen to Antigone. It's the final penalty. She's kind of telling her, I'm going to risk death for the final penalty for what, he's saying about our brothers. And if I have to die, that's what I have to do. So just keep that in mind. You're trying to look for every clue as you're reading this. And of course, I'm not going to put the whole script on here. Okay, nothing is so bad as dying a coward's death. Antigone is very determined, strong and stalwart. Her determination is a strength, but it's also a hindrance for a woman of her time. So like you and I looking outside, we may see it as a strength, like, wow, she's really courageous. But because of the time she's in, women in Greece, at this time, is very, very much going to put her in a bad situation. Okay? And so you have another theme of cruelty and revenge. It's the burial of our two brothers. Creon promotes one of them and shames the other. Eteocles, I heard, Creon covered him beneath the earth with proper rites as law ordained, so he has honor down among the dead. But Polynices' miserable course, they say, Creon has proclaimed to everyone. We went over this. So this again foreshadowed mood and tone. These are your two telling lines of what's going to happen. And again, I wanted to get into cruelty and revenge with the same line. It's like, how cruel is that? That he's like, no burial of any kind. He starts saying things about Polynices. He was a coward, and he doesn't, Creon doesn't like him at all, and it's Creon's word. We go into the next slide, we're going to get into cruelty and revenge and how other people try to warn Creon. So Creon makes another reference about, and I looked here for historical references. This is about women. Creon, as a king, says they are women, and they must not be free to roam about, even if a brave man flees from death when he sees his life is in immediate danger. So he's like justifying. I'm going to put this as justification for killing or for sentencing Antigone to death. Okay, and he had this was in response to, well, actually she goes to prison. Antigone goes to prison, and she's awaiting a sentence. And Haman kind of says, hey, Dad, why are we doing this? For sending her. Let me be specific. It's not her, it's Antigone. So he's sending Antigone. You could even say for imposing the death sentence on Antigone, but I'm sending Antigone to prison because at this point she's still in prison. And I'm not going to give too much of the story away, but she's still in prison. And this is his justification. So these are lines you can look for. And they have most of these plays online. I don't know if your teachers gave it to you in a book. Anyway, it says, Haman says, no, not if I am in the wrong. I admit I'm young. That's why you should look at what I do, not my age. So Haman does not like revenge. Sometimes you think Sophocles is harder to read than Shakespeare, but actually, on some levels, he's easier. You just have to be in the right mood. Creon later says, this is going a couple lines down, it turns out this boy is fighting for the woman's cause, and he doesn't mean a 12-year-old, he means a young boy. So these are just some of the themes that you can use. This is just an introduction. You have to do your reading, but this is for people who needed help with Greek tragedies. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.